All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. This is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and on the district website. It was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I'm going to pause to ask Superintendent Wimmer to please confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. We recognize a quorum of our board. All 7 members are present tonight, and we extend a welcome to our newest member, Chris Jenkins. Welcome. Look forward to serving with you. Thank you. All right. So next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. And so the agenda was posted and provided in advance. I would move to approve this agenda. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Kelly. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. That motion carries. We're going to move then to recognition of a number of individuals here. We're going to ask Mr. Mike Bentall, our Skills USA advisor, to come to the podium for the first item here, which is Skills USA State Competition Student Recognition. Oh,
I'm just going to introduce
absolutely.
Right. So I'm here, you usually see me for athletics, but I'm here with my co-curricular hat, and we have some national qualifiers for our Skills USA group. So I'm going to call up Mr. Mike Bentall, who is our advisor, to give you some more detailed information.
Great, thank you.
Yep, you guys are up there. Perfect. All right. Skills USA is a club at the high school where we strive to help students gain the assets necessary for America's skilled workforce. This year, our chapter as a whole received the Chapter Excellence Program. Noah Minty was elected to our state leadership as District 5 Vice President. Individual students, they can compete in anything from CNC milling to photography to urban search and rescue to cosmetology. This year, we had 2 teams place first at the state level and qualify for nationals. This year we had Zach Church and Seth Deming, who qualified in digital cinema production. We had Trainer Gearn, Jose Rodriguez, Grayson DeGroot, Alex Lukasevich, who qualified in broadcast news production. This will be the second year that Trainer Jose and Grayson will be making our district proud. At the end of June, these 6 students will be competing at the Skills USA National Competition in Atlanta, Georgia, against the best in the skilled trades.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. We sure appreciate it. Quite an accomplishment. We wish you luck in nationals for sure. All right, thank you. I think we have a we have a second item of recognition. Yes, Molly.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Bentall to stay up here with me.
Can I go ahead and grab this?
Yes, you can. Please hold it the entire time. So at the Skills USA state competition that was held in Madison on April 9th, Mike Bentall, who is the advisor of West Bend High School's Skills USA chapter, and of course our technology and engineering education teacher, he was named the 2024 Skills USA Advisor of the Year. The Skills USA Advisor of the Year award honors Skills USA most dedicated career and technical education instructors. This program recognizes professional members who actualize the organization's mission to empower students to become skilled professionals, career-ready leaders, and responsible community members. A Skills USA chapter is only successful with the support of an advisor who has dedicated themselves to career and technical education by intentionally integrating the Skills USA framework and ensuring students can articulate the skills they have developed. This is a remarkable achievement for Mr. Bentall that highlights his dedication, passion, and commitment to empowering students in their journey towards excellence. I would like to congratulate Mr. Bentall on this prestigious award and thank him for the impact he's making in the lives of our students. I told him
Please come forward, please. If you'd like to. No? Well, then please accept the board's thanks. But certainly, if you'd like to say a few words, you can. And if you don't, that's all right, too. No pressure.
Sure.
No pressure.
Not a big talker, as you could probably guess. I feel that I haven't done anything above and beyond what was best for the students. In getting this, I don't feel like I put myself out there. I've just done what those guys need for the club. So it's cool to be appreciated for doing what I feel is my job. So there you go.
Well, certainly appreciate all of your work and efforts. Thank you. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody coming. We're going to get ready now for our next agenda item, which is public participation. So I'm going to pause just in case there are individuals here who came for the first part and wish to depart. We always encourage individuals to stay for our public meeting. You're welcome to, but if this is the time that you wish to depart, please feel free to do so. Because what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to read the public participation announcement, because I have 3 participant comment cards, and I believe they're all from students tonight wishing to participate in public participation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the board president's announcement. So we have rules around public participation. One of the rules says that I need to go through this to inform people about what goes on during public participation. So here we go. We've come to the public participation portion of our agenda. Board Policy 187 prescribes the nature and procedures for this segment. I summarize the policy at this time, but copies of the policy are available in the back of the room, and I urge you to familiarize yourself with the policy in its entirety. Residents of the district, parents of children in district schools, and employees of the district may participate. Participants desiring to address the board should obtain and complete a participant comment card near the entry and turn it over to the president prior to the meeting or when allowed by the president. Participants may comment concerning an agenda item or a non-agenda item, and each participant will be called to the podium and be given 3 minutes to speak. The participant must state his or her name and relation to the district. This information will appear in the minutes of the meeting. The board will not engage in debate concerning the remarks or take immediate action. The board may refer the matter to the superintendent, a committee, or take the remarks into consideration in future action. Board Policy 872 provides a formal process for citizen complaints, and Board Policy 520 provides a formal process for employee complaints. The board recommends use of these procedures as they guarantee a fair and timely response. Now, I will invite the participants forward to speak, and there's a visible timer right behind me to help you manage your time. And what I'll do also is I'll announce who's going to come forward and then who's next. And lastly, to help ensure that all participants are heard and that this meeting runs efficiently, we ask that everyone please abstain from conversation, comment, or applause during or after the public participation comments. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite participants forward. And as others in the past know, I'm terrible with names, so if I mispronounce your name, I'm so sorry to have offended you, but I'll ask you to pronounce it when I ask you to state your name for the record. So we invite forward Clara Minty, who's our first speaker tonight, and next is going to be Mia Hanvey. So we're going to start with Clara. Clara, it says here that you are a student in the district. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Fantastic. So for the record, if you could just state your name, and then you can begin, and you'll have the 3 minutes per the timer. So if you could state your name, please.
Clara Minty.
All right, thank you.
I am a very involved 6th grader at Silverbrook Intermediate School. I am the president of K-Kids, I was in forensics, I'm in advanced math, and I write for the Viking Voice newspaper. Recently, my friends and I have become aware of something that we cannot stand for. The West Bend School District has made the decision to suspend the book club part of our curriculum. Members of the committee have become accusatory of book club books offered in the school district. Simply because the curriculum committee has not gone over our Silverbrook books, they have removed the book clubs completely. This choice is perplexing, as taking away book clubs takes away many opportunities for us to learn and grow with our peers. Even if some of the book club books are slightly intense or questionable, there is a simple solution to that. Continue what we have done for years, and let the families choose what books their students read. Even professional literacy consultants agree with this, as consultant Aaron Schilling says, removing books and essentially banning them is a huge disservice to students in the long run. I do, however, still think that students and families should have the right to opt out of reading certain texts, but that too should be a choice. We shouldn't make that decision for all students, and rather teach them to make choices for themselves, end quote. Every kid handles things differently, as I know from personal experience. A few weeks ago, I wanted to read The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. If you are not familiar with the book, it does contain swearing and other difficult topics to do with World War II and death. Instead of instantly prohibiting me from reading the book, my mom reviewed the book and its contents and decided if the book was right for me. She ended up allowing it and offered to talk with me about any hard subjects. I loved the book, and I feel it made a large impact on me. My parents have made that choice about every other book my brother and I read, and it has always been right for us. So all we ask is that you consider the grade band changes the curriculum committee discussed and let our families decide what is best for us. Thank you.
Thank you. We now invite forward Mia Hanvey, and our last speaker then will be Zoe Malatis. And so I'm going to start by asking if I pronounce your name correctly. Mia Hanvey?
Yes,
All right, excellent. So it says here that you're a student in the district, is that correct?
that's correct.
Great. So if you would state your name, and then the next 3 minutes are yours.
Mia Hanvey. I am also a sixth grader in Silverbrook Intermediate. I have been involved in running club, community theater, volleyball, and color guard. And I will be continuing the thoughts of the book club suspension. I have a question for you. Have you ever considered what the students think about this unprecedented decision? You haven't even asked the teachers to do a quick survey about what the students think. Adults shouldn't be the only ones who make little decisions. These little decisions have big effects, so students try make this decision too. Of course, it's not just about the students, but it is about all of us. The community who are passionate about this are also involved. This matters for the people who like reading books and sharing these ideas with other people who feel the same as they do. One student even said that she struggles finding other people's perspectives and that the book clubs made it easier for her to do that. Maybe the school board is also struggling to understand our perspective. So here it is. I was very surprised when I heard the curriculum community was suspending the book clubs. I liked the opportunity of book clubs last year and how I could work with my friends and peers, but still be reading and learning. Then I started to feel confused, and as I began to learn more about the reasons of the suspension, the confusion turned into anger. I know I am not alone in this. Other people support me. Clearly, the thoughts and feelings of Silverbrook students should be recognized as we ask you to reconsider the suspension of our book club curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker tonight is Zoe Malatis. So I'll also begin by saying, did I pronounce your name correctly? Not quite. That's okay, because you're going to have an opportunity to state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes as well. So if you go ahead and state your name, and then the next 3 minutes are yours.
Zoe Malatis. I am another sixth grade student at Silverbrook Intermediate School, involved in many activities such as forensics, wildlife club, running club, and I have written for the school newspaper in the past. I will be finishing our statements on the suspension of the book clubs from our curriculum and how this is taking away from our learning. First of all, I would like to share a personal experience I had with book clubs. When I participated in book clubs last year, I had to pick a book to read. The list had many books I had never heard of before, so I chose the book Words on Fire by Jennifer A. Nielsen because the topic was interesting to me. Many of you may have heard of this book before. It is a great book that I really enjoyed reading and talking about with my peers, and I would have never picked up the book if it wasn't for the book clubs. This is just one of the opportunities book clubs provide, to explore and read books they might have never been exposed to. Just think of all the books that we are missing out on. So I encourage you to think about the effects that book clubs have on kids, not just emotionally, but professionally as well. I would like to share with you a few quotes from professional literacy consultant Erin Schilling on the topic of problems with not having book clubs in schools. Ms. Schilling says, book clubs allow students to be social. There are so many instances where students gather with their friends or peers but they all look at their phones and do not interact with one another. Book clubs are authentic opportunities for students to not only interact, but also learn how to enter into civil discussions where disagreements are bound to happen. They will need to express their thinking and back it up with evidence. They will also need to be critical listeners." End quote. Book clubs make it easier for students to acquire and master these skills. For some students, it is hard to listen. With book clubs, they need to be critical listeners. This, in addition, can help with their listening in class. These are very important skills for students to have. This concludes what we have to say about the topic on the suspension of book clubs, and we hope you take our ideas into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our public participation portion. So as I had mentioned before with Board Policy 187, so the board doesn't comment on the public participation at this point, but we take it under advisement. And I'll just speak on behalf of the board. We appreciate your very practiced, very respectful way of presenting tonight. We always enjoy hearing from members of the public and our students. And so thank you very much for coming tonight. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move forward with the remainder of our meeting. And again, just like I had mentioned before, you are very welcome to stay for it. And at the same time, if you have other things to do, that's fine as well. We won't take offense. So thank you again for coming. We'll move on then. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. On our consent agenda tonight, we have minutes of the April 8th, 2024 regular board meeting and executive session. We have minutes from the April 10th, 2024 special board meeting. We have minutes from the March 18th, 2024 regular board meeting. And those minutes have been amended at the request of Head Start with additional detail. So those are amended minutes. We also have 11 contracts, 1 resignation, 1 retirement, and I believe that concludes the items on the consent agenda. Are there any questions on items on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I move to approve this consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. I was going to say thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Oh, that was Chad. Well, then thank you, Chad. Clearly, I have to get my hearing checked. Sorry about that. So we have a motion and second, thank you, Chad, to accept the consent agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. All right, we move then to reports. And our first report tonight is a curriculum committee report. And Melanie Aragot, our curriculum committee chair, will give that report. Melanie.
All right, so the curriculum committee met on April 20th, just a few days ago. We focused on 2 items, the primary resource for the ELA for grades K through 4 and the proposed recommendations for book club selections. So related to the primary resource for ELA in grades K4, we heard an update that the district literacy team had taken a team of teachers and administrators from each grade and building to the Grafton Area School District to gain an understanding of their first full year of experience with implementing the Amplify CKLA curriculum. And our teachers debriefed and created a presentation for colleagues that was delivered at a professional development day on April 1st. Additionally, the curriculum was made available to community members for review and feedback at the ESC and the library from March 22nd to April 12th. And during this time, 1 community member registered their name and 0 survey responses were recorded. So as part of the adoption process, the committee has recommended to move this forward to the board for consideration, and it will be, I think, likely on our next agenda as it was a pretty close turnaround here. So, and then related to the book clubs, we discussed proposed recommendations for the selection and notification. They were developed from several sources, discussion from the board's iterative process, observations and challenges identified by the committee, guidance by the C&I department, and feedback from staff and families, parents, guardians. So the formalized recommendations will include revising the definitions for graphic violence, sexual content, and excessive obscene language, defining a review process with specific considerations for determining appropriateness, redefining the grade bands, resetting threshold levels, and revising communication and notification parameters. So those will be moved forward for board consideration, which I'm thinking will also be at the next meeting.
Very good.
Yep. So that was what we talked about.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Melanie regarding the curriculum committee report? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to the next report, which is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Wimmer.
Sure. The administration would echo congratulations to both Chris Swigert as well as Chris Jenkins on their election to school board. Today marks the official first day of their terms. Prior to Mr. Jenkins' first official day, he has spent hours with the administrative team making sure he could hit the ground running. So we are grateful for that. We look forward to working with our newest member as well as Mr. Swigert as a continued member. Just for our full board, prior to the May 6th meeting, we'll update our photos, take a group photo and your individual shots for our website. So that'll be May 6th. We'd like to recognize that it's National Volunteer Appreciation Week. So a special thank you to our parent-teacher organizations who give so much time to our schools and students, but also a thank you to all of our volunteers from our community who dedicate their time and their generosity. We have over 1,700 volunteers in our district database who volunteer time and effort for our students in schools, so we appreciate all of them. A reminder to our community that the next facilities conversation is this Thursday, April 25th, 6 p.m. at the West High School cafeteria. See our website to RSVP for that, just so we can space plan. Thank you to the numerous staff and community members who have already participated in those work sessions, engagement sessions. We appreciate the feedback that helps inform the board. The board's next work session on that topic is April 30th at 4:30 p.m. here at the ASC. So again, that's to kind of go over everything that we heard across all of those sessions. So again, that next one is Thursday for the public. Just an update to the board and our community regarding the WIA realignment committee's recommendations. Recall that we testified in person and the WIA Board of Control remanded that decision back to the alignment committee, which they came forward with an amended proposal that still has us changing conferences. That Board of Control, despite our appeal, once again is considering removal of East and West high schools from the established North Shore Conference and place them in a newly formed 7-member conference. So that would include Kettle Moraine Lutheran, Kewaskum, Port Washington, Plymouth, Sheboygan South. The prior had Grafton in place of Kettle Moraine, so that was one of the changes. So they will hear this again. We've submitted letters to the realignment as well as Board of Control, which will be reviewed on the 23rd. So it would be implemented in 2025, 2026 sports season, but just so our public and everyone understands the impact, what we've submitted, our students will now be in 4 conferences, should this be approved. North Shore for football, Classic 8 for the boys hockey, Eastern Shores for girls hockey, and then that new conference for every other competition. So right now we're working across 3 conferences. This makes us working across 4 with scheduling. Over 130 of our athletes will be negatively impacted by this move because it reduces competition for our students. In our current competition format, things like boys swim and dive, girls golf, girls swim and dive, have 7 teams to compete with. It reduces them to 3. East and West gymnastics go from an 8-team competitive series to 3 teams they can compete with. For boys lacrosse and girls lacrosse, they go from 3 teams to none in the new conference. So clearly we filed our opposition. I believe I used the words vehement opposition to their plan that has such negative consequences for our students. So I will keep you posted along with our student athletes and their families regarding the outcome of that Board of Control. Again, it doesn't take place for another year, but has significant impact, and we want everyone to be aware of our advocacy efforts in opposition of this move. Any questions on that? I know that's a big topic.
The only question that I'd have is there anything additional that our board needs to support administration? It sounds like we've talked about this before, and you've been in furtherance of what we had talked about before, but if there's anything else that we need to do, we just need to make sure it's on an agenda and we will address it.
Correct. Not at this time. Again, we'll see what that outcome is and then what our steps are prior to its implementation.
Thank you.
Did they have a reason for the change?
What happened was another conference was sunsetting, and they needed to find a home for Kewaskum specifically. That was the one that didn't find a home. So Kewaskum, so then they were looking at adding a couple schools to the established North Shore Conference, which did not make sense. Kewaskum is significantly smaller, anywhere from 450 to 500 students at the high school. So it's a very different competitive balance. So they look at that piece along with geography. So then it came back with, again, their idea was to create this whole newly formed, I mean, you're literally driving by some schools to get to others because Slinger remains. It does not make sense, and we've held that to light to both their realignment task force as well as Board of Control. So we'll see how they respond to that tomorrow, and I'll alert you. The Public Schools Foundation works in partnership with our school district. So we're so lucky to have a Public Schools Foundation. I think the biggest thing people can point to is the Silver Lining Arts Center that they were instrumental in fundraising and making happen in our district. But also, they create investments in student learning and different classroom things by providing funding specifically in the areas of arts, innovation, and fitness. So each year they invite students, community members, staff members to generate ideas that promote innovation, creativity, and engagement. And they offer mini grants to support those projects. So if you look at our most recent district newsletter, or check out our website, that mini grant application's there. If anyone is interested in submitting an idea or pursuing that for consideration, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you with that process. Another thing that makes our high schools unique is we have a synchronized swim team. So they might not be competitive. I'm sure I'm the only one out there with that. But they are on the verge of their next show. They've been training very hard, and their shows are Thursday the 25th at 7 p.m., Friday the 26th at 7 p.m., and 2 shows on the 27th at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. You can get those tickets ahead of time at the West Athletics GoFan site or the West Athletics website. So again, we look forward to those student performances. It's always a great show. It's a little hot in the pool, so as a spectator, I'm going to advise maybe layers and some short sleeves. But it's always a great show and something that our students look forward to. And then a call that we've put out in our newsletter for any talented artists in the community. The Washington County Clerk's Office is requesting student involvement in the creation of its 2024 I Voted stickers. So students in grades kindergarten through 12 can submit a design for the sticker that could be used in the upcoming November 5th, 2024 election for all of Washington County. They've got information that was in our last newsletter, or you can check the county, but they're accepting submissions from April 12th to May 31st. So check out their website or our last district newsletters for a little bit more information on that opportunity. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Wimmer on her report? All right, hearing none, we will move to our discussion items. And actually, we have a number of student trips on our agenda tonight. I think there are 2 under discussion and then 2 under the approval portion. We start with the discussion items, though. Out-of-country trip, French. And I believe the class advisor, Carrie Simmer, is going to come forward and introduce this topic. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Carrie Simmer. I'm the French here at the West Bend School District. 1 second. Do I click to go to the next slide, or do I steal? Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I'm very excited to offer the opportunity to our students currently enrolled in French or next year to travel to Quebec, Canada. It's a very fast, fully packed 4-day adventure where they get to immerse in the language, history, culture, and a whole lot of fun. So I'm going to go through a couple highlights with you. Obviously, the immersion experience is the ultimate experience in a world language. So that's something that we try to do the best, and this is our second trip for French speakers since post-COVID year. This is a trip we've done traditionally. I personally have been on it 3 times as a co-leader, and now we're excited to offer it, hopefully get into that routine again to explore. So what says 4 days, 3 nights, we head to Quebec, Canada. We fly out of Chicago, head to Montreal, bus to Quebec, and that's where we spend a majority of our times. We get to see the city. We have guided tours, lots of all the lovely food. Definitely a lot of historical sites. We get to see it, and we get a reenactment, so we actually a lot of interactive experiences as well for the students. Some of the more athletic adventures, we get to try our place at dog sledding. Get to see some of the nature parts of Quebec and tubing, which is always a hit with the kids. And one of my favorite is the sugar shacks, where they get to be immersed into an old-fashioned maple syrup, learn the history of it, and get to try it themselves. And once again, more food, usually their favorite part. So the trip cost right now is, actually we do have, looking at the prices here, about just over $2,000 for the 4 days. Some things it doesn't include would be like lunches and snacks and what's the word I'm looking for? Souvenirs for that. Some fundraising stuff we've already started, because just with French Club in general, we can use it for any of our activities that we offer, whether it's a trip to the ballet or our abroad trips, are here. Sorry, that was a lot at once, but I know we like to be concise.
No, that's just fine. And so this is a discussion item, so we won't take action on it, but we'll see it at the next board meeting. But this sounds like, and you started your presentation with this is largely consistent with what has been done in the past, correct?
Yeah.
This isn't the first
Yep.
time.
Correct, and there's been a few given, because we also go through like, visit the Carnival de Quebec, the largest winter carnival in the world, different sites, but it kind of depends on what's available. Either we'll go to like the night parade, or we'll go to the carnival sites and play the winter games and things like that. Those things vary, but for the most part, it's about the same.
Well, what I like about the trip is it's not that far away.
Yes, it's a really great opportunity for those who are like want to international travel, but are not quite ready for a big European trip. So it kind of eases into that. And for another language immersion experience, because some parts of Quebec, it's exclusively French, while some is what we like to call franglais, between the two.
I've been to Montreal once, and I will say that there are areas you feel comfortable speaking English, but they will have no problem finding people who speak exclusively French. So, other questions, board members? So this is a discussion item, so we'll see it back on another agenda, but we appreciate you presenting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We move to our next discussion item, which is out-of-country trip for orchestra. And I believe the class advisor, Mindara Kruger-Olsen, is right here. Thank you.
Yes.
Good
that's
evening.
correct. Hello, I am Mindara Krieger-Olsen. My students know me as Miss KO. I am the first-year orchestra teacher this year at the high school, and I'm really excited to present. Hold on. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yay! Okay, so I found out about this very exciting trip with some of my, I guess, former/current colleagues, taking an orchestra on a tour to Spain. So, yeah, with Rock Infused Orchestra, which is an organization that is a summer orchestra camp that meets weekly, that I've taught at for many years. So this would be the summer of 2025. It would include students who are currently in 8th grade all the way up to current juniors. This would be happening next year, like right after graduation. So this would be a performance tour, an exciting cultural experience for our students. Not only will they fully be in Spain, but they will also be traveling with students not only from WBHS, but students from other high schools across Wisconsin. So we're talking like Stevens Point, Fond du Lac, Neenah, Oshkosh West, DC Everest. So lots of different schools involved, and so there would be a lot of different students that they would get to interact with, in addition to being in another country. So it's really exciting. It would be a 10 days, 9 nights trip. However, the leaving date from Chicago O'Hare would be June 8th, which I know is graduation for next year. So that date is tentative, but it can flex. I've talked to the director of the trip for our travel company, and he has said that if we needed to push back traveling to June 9th, that is okay. They would be able to work it out. I know the person who is running this trip from our travel company personally. His name is Dean Marshall, and he works magic. I don't know how he does it. But any questions that you might have that I don't know how to answer, I can go directly to him, and he will be able to give me an answer. So it makes it very exciting. So this trip would include 3 performances at professional venues, sightseeing in multiple different cities and towns in Spain, seeing the ocean, visiting Tabarca Island, and experiencing a lot of Spanish culture in addition to playing with a bunch of people. So we would go to Barcelona and Peníscola. We would get to visit the Basilica Sagrada Familia, and upon getting to Spain, we would have a full group rehearsal with the entire ensemble that we would be playing with, which is really exciting. There would be professional lights, professional sound, and it's a whole ordeal. So very exciting for our students. Because this is an excellent musical opportunity to branch out from what we do in class as well. So if students are interested in learning more about what it is like to play in a stage band, this is their opportunity. Which, I already have students who are very interested in this type of thing anyway, so it would be just a beautiful thing for them. Anyways, we would get to see a flamenco show. We would get lots of swimming and beach time, lots of visiting old markets. You'll see on the cost that many lunches are not included in the cost. All breakfasts and dinners are, but because we are seeing so many fresh markets, lots of our lunches would be on our own because they're right there, which is very cool. We would get to visit the City of Arts and Sciences in Valencia, which is super awesome. We are also sightseeing in the city of Lileria, which is an UNESCO City of Music, which is a huge honor. They also have a music festival called the Loom Festival that we would get to perform at, which is very, very, very cool. Again, lots of sightseeing, and we would depart then again from Barcelona. So what we would be playing is a set of fully memorized rock, pop, and fiddle tunes. It has not been finalized yet. If you would like to see the finalized list, I can see what the director of Rock Infused Orchestra, what he's working with right now, because I also know him. But it would be fully memorized with blocking and choreography, with a full stage production of lights, sound, and a full stage band behind the orchestra. Prior to the trip, we would learn all of this music. So students who would be going on the trip, basically, once they give us their, we are going, here's the deposit, they would receive music, they would receive lots of resources from Rock Infused Orchestra organization to learn this music. And we would have multiple opportunities to go visit with the other high schools participating in this trip to work on the music together. So there would be lots of support before leaving. The trip breakdown for the cost. We broke it down, ground cost plus airfare plus trip insurance is the total. Ground cost we are estimating at 3,290, but it could fluctuate slightly depending on changes to accommodation plans for meals or transportation, and this depends on how many students from each high school are going to participate. They have numbers that are solid from many other high schools, but because I don't know how many students from WBHS are going to be going, we can't like give a precise number yet. Would you like me to go through all of these things? Because I know we want to keep it concise.
No, I think it's, board members, I mean, I think your presentation is consistent with the materials that we get in other ones, so I appreciate it. So the last thing I want to do is cut you off.
Okay, beautiful.
No, I think this is fine. I'm going to pause first of all to see board members, any questions on the presentation so far? John, go ahead.
Just a quick one. So I'm assuming with all the schools involved, we're going to be bunking our own groups together. We're not like stranger kids across, the state.
No, yeah, in conversation that I've had with the trip managers, which is primarily Dean Marshall, who is head of the travel company, and then the head of Rock Infused Orchestra, which is Andy Hutchinson. It does not matter if you remember who those people are. But they are basically treating it as like separate groups coming on the same trip. So that like anything goes wrong within any of those singular groups, they can handle it on their own. So it's kind of like a giant umbrella with multiple groups under the umbrella. So, yeah. And we'll each have our own tour manager for each different high school group. So everything like can be internally within like the WBHS group be taken care of for us, which is cool.
Melanie, did you have a point?
I had a question, and I don't know if this would be for you but I remember there was another out of country trip, and there was something like the seniors, because it was after graduation, the seniors could not go, correct?
Correct. We had to work separately, so I've made a note of that because I caught that in your presentation. I'll meet with Dr. Trueblood tomorrow, and we'll go through that because they're technically graduates of us, so we don't have any claim to them. So we had to do some workarounds.
Okay.
Good.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And also, I appreciate your presentation too, because when I looked at it first, I thought, Spain, what's the connection? But really, it's more the venue, the opportunity. I mean, this sounds like a full production kind of environment. So it's really an opportunity. That's the locale where this is happening, where all sorts of students are coming. So not to say it's less about Spain, but this is where that locale is happening and the opportunity is happening. Do I have that right?
Yes, exactly. So it's less about like, it's more about like the music and like, traveling together to do this thing. And it just so happens that it's in Spain.
Yeah, and I'm not minimizing the opportunity. I've not been to Spain, but I'm not minimizing that opportunity either. I think that's a really great feature.
Yes,
So.
a lot of my students are in Spanish classes, and they've like articulated to me that they really wish that they had more opportunity to use their Spanish. So like every time they tell me, I'm like, oh, just you wait. Yeah. So
The one thing I just might recommend is for those who have not traveled to Europe is sometimes it's good just to get the kids together to talk about European customs are a little bit different than what we have here, especially when eating in restaurants and things like that. And I learned that in Italy, for instance, tipping. That's a whole different thing in Italy than it is here, and you don't want to offend your hosts either. So yeah, so that's one item I just might recommend. Other questions, thoughts? June, go ahead.
When I hear orchestra, I think a very large group. Do you know how many kids might be going and how many, like the ratio of chaperone to student?
that's a great question, and I can answer partially. So we are looking for around 30-ish students. That's around consistent with how many students are coming from other high schools in Wisconsin. Of course, it's like give or take however many students, depending on size of high school, how big their orchestra program is, things like that. But we've estimated around up to 30, and I've looked at past trips that orchestra has taken because there used to be a Scotland trip that ran very consistently, but the pandemic kind of did away with that. And it was around 30 for that. So around a class. And then for chaperones, I honestly am not sure. I know I would go, and I know that there is another orchestra teacher in the district who is very interested in coming. But in terms of chaperones for WBHS, I honestly have no idea. It would really just, I would need to speak with parents first and see who's interested, because cost for chaperones does look different depending on however many students go and things like that. Apparently, there's a very complicated spreadsheet.
So there's generally, depending on the company that you use, there's specific ratios and targets that you would hit and do that. So depending on that, so we'll get you that information of what those ratios, that expectation is for you, so that you have that in advance, and then it'll be dependent on how many actually register.
Great. Other questions? I said before, this is a discussion item, so we don't take action tonight, but we look forward to seeing this again on the agenda next time. Thank you for your presentation.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
All right. Superintendent Wimber, the next item on our agenda is review board operations. And I believe you're going to give us a bit of a walkthrough around our board and reorganizing ourselves for the coming year.
Sure. So the next discussion items, again, discussion only, are around each spring you seat new board members or have some continuing ones. So we are seating a new board member, but these are all pieces that are just good practice. And even when we have returning board members, I remind you of these things. So in our policy, or a policy governance board, so that's what guides our work, and you have collective authority as a board, those are in the 100 series. Those are around board operations, our general mission, how the board conducts itself, legal status, all sorts of different things. So we always ask that the board take time annually to review those. One piece that we will be bringing back for some perhaps legal guidance for the board. There's been some changes in communications, electronic communications, the intersection of your own Facebook and social media communications, and there's been some kind of higher courts doing some hearings and some things of that nature. So we'll most likely bring that back as a discussion item for the full board, just as that evolves, so that you're up to date and have some strong guidance regarding those things. So that would be one piece. The only other changes from what you saw last year, we updated the administrative rule. That's an AR that goes with our response to Title IX complaints. That was done some months ago. We updated the numbering on the high school configuration review process. We implemented, after what felt like years of discussion, nepotism for the board. It was years, 165.2. We also retain a nepotism policy regarding staff. That also sits in its handbook, but again, there's some pieces around board members. And then we just refined 167 public complaints regarding school board members to just make that really clear what that process would look like. One piece that we'll discuss a little bit more in a next up item is around committees. So that outlines the committee structure and the board's ability to convene committees on things. So depending on that discussion, if we need to be in attention to that policy in any way. But also 187, our policy committee made recommendations. We're going to bring that forward. There was a little circular reference in 187, public participation, with some policy numbers embedded within. So we'll bring that. Our committee's ready to bring that forward to tweak that a little bit. But those are kind of the updates, the evolution of those policies. I would encourage board members to familiarize yourself, reach out with any questions on policies and how those work as well. Any questions at this time regarding those policies and how they work?
All right. I don't hear any questions.
Great.
Can we
I
move
get
to
the
the
next one.
The next agenda item, all right, is our school board meeting calendar, 2024, 2025.
So you recall that our year, even though the election cycle is that you take your seats the fourth Monday, our year goes July 1 to June 30th. So it's at this time during reorganization that we talk about the calendars for the future. We don't have a consistent format in the calendar. We've done a mixed calendar, which includes first and third Monday or second and fourth Monday. And that's largely due to conflicts that you see due to holidays, scheduled breaks, et cetera. So we actually prepared, if we were to stay with those calendars, you have two that are in front of you. One that's largely staying to the 1st and 3rd, which there was only one conflict to attend to at September. Then again, if you went to a 2nd and 4th, there are 3 months that would need attention. And it's certainly a time for board members to look at your own calendars to determine if there's any conflicts or things that we could kind of head off at the pass, if you will, as we do our calendar ahead. So there's 2 calendars there for consideration discussion. But the first big items are, does the day of the week work? Does the time work? Because we'll set all that going forward. So I'd open it to the board for discussion.
Chad?
I would like to see the time and the date continue, the time and the day of the week continue as is for quality of life schedule purposes.
Well, I can start there. Does anyone have a strong objection to continuing Monday nights as being our normal night meeting? For not seeing anything there. And any issues, challenges, or problems with a normal 5:30 start like we have right now? Don't see anything there. We're narrowing it down, Superintendent Wimmer, so it sounds like the day is okay and the time is okay.
Everyone said that one was pretty good.
Yeah.
It kind of gets into the nitty-gritty of the calendar and moving forward with mixed calendar or some kind of iteration. There was a request to look at a 2nd and 4th Monday versus the 1st and 3rd. But again, then we would have to go to a mixed format. With that said, most boards keep a consistent format. This has always been a mixed format, which predates me. We just delineate what those days are and we communicate those and we communicate changes to our public. So having a mixed calendar has not been problematic for our public.
So if memory serves, and I may be wrong, we would start generally with something like 1st and 3rd, but then ask the board if there were conflicts. Once in a while, a conflict would arise, then we would go back and say, well, maybe for that month we could move it to 2nd and 4th. Do we start with the idea of a 1st and 3rd and ask the board to check your calendars and see if there are conflicts and report back in the interim? Again, this is a discussion item, so we can take it up next time. I guess I'll ask if there are, should we aim for a 1st and 3rd? Does that present challenges or issues for our board members?
So I know I'm the newbie here, but just because I have multiple different government conflicts and things like that, I know I lean towards that 2nd and 4th Monday. But again, I understand that it's a mixed schedule and I can make some meetings, can't make others, just like everybody else. So
2nd and 4th, okay.
Open for discussion.
Sure. Melanie, you look like you were reaching for your microphone.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't really have a preference as to if it's 1st, 3rd, 2nd, 4th, or whatever.
Great.
I'm flexible.
I'm good with 2nd, 4th too. Doesn't
Okay.
matter.
The first and 3rd works better for me, just for scheduling purposes, and it looks like there's less conflicts, but I'm open to, if there's specific date conflicts, it's not a huge deal.
Okay.
So looking ahead, it sounds like both Chad and Chris, you might have some mixed availability across the calendars. If then between now and the next meeting, maybe I could work with the 2 of you individually to get something that would meet that. Sounds like the other board members were kind of good with that. I could propose something and we could look at some unique conflicts that might come up, different vacation schedules, work obligations, that kind of thing. Would that work with the team?
Sure.
Do that? So
I
I
think
work
that's-
across those 2 calendars right now to tighten that up and get us something. What I'll try and do is get that out in advance as a draft form, because that would allow you then to look at maybe any other personal conflicts, because then if we draw that calendar up, it would allow us to kind of go forward with something out of the gate that doesn't automatically create conflict.
No, I think
So-
that- go ahead. No, go ahead,
So if
Kelly.
we have a conflict with any of these proposed, just send them your way and, okay.
That would be great.
Yep, you were going exactly where I was, that we'll just take a look at all of our Mondays, and here are the ones that don't work.
Let me
Working
know.
with these
We'll
gentlemen.
combobulate that, and then I'll work directly with Chris and Chad to try and put something together that attends to those discretionary schedules.
Well, arranging calendars sometimes is like herding cats, so thanks very much for taking that on. Other questions on the school board meeting calendar? Otherwise, we'll see this back for action next time. All right. Next, Superintendent Wimmer is reviewing the board officers' terms and election.
Sure. In that next item, one of the things that you need to do within so many days after that first Monday is to reorganize. So we have the following officer positions. They're guided by, again, a board policy, which is linked there for you. But you have the position of president, vice president, clerk, and treasurer. So what we do at this time, certainly people are sitting in those roles. Kurt had been serving as treasurer, but just orient you to what that is and open up dialogue to see if anyone would like to express interest in one of those positions, because then we will prepare for voting at the next meeting around those. So tonight is discussion only. It's an opportunity for people to express interest. Ask each other questions about the different positions, and then certainly you can express interest to either Chris Weigert, the current president, or myself in the interim, because you might reflect on something and think about it later and want to do that, and then we'll be prepared to have that formalized for action after. But at this time, is there anyone who'd like to express interest in one of the positions or have questions about one of the positions?
I'll say I'm happy to continue serving as president. However, I'm always open for, anyone should express interest in the position, certainly. So, but with regard to any of the other positions, here I'm going to single folks out, but Melanie, with regard to clerk, are you interested in continuing on, or?
Yeah, I have no problem continuing on as clerk. I've enjoyed my time as clerk on the board, but if anybody else is interested, like Chris said here, that is also fine. So.
Okay, great. Let's see, and how about vice president? Kelly, I believe you're...
Yeah, I think I would be interested in doing this again, but again, happy to have conversations if anyone else is.
Great. So treasurer was occupied by Mr. Rebholz, and so we are definitely in need of a new treasurer. I think I think I've heard from two board members, Mr. Jenkins, and I believe June, you also expressed interest perhaps in treasurer, not to single you out, but we've got two individuals interested in that. Anyone else interested on the treasurer side? Okay. Well, and if we have a vote, Superintendent Wimmer, I think this is the rare circumstance if we have an election where we get to vote by secret ballot that day if we need to.
Correct.
So we'll be prepared for that,
Per
just
policy,
in case.
this is the one time that you get to do that, and then I would pass out ballots. You'd turn those in. We'd take each position separately and then oversee those to determine who would hold the position for the following year. The positions are 1 year at a time, and you're reorganized annually.
Well, and so we just did a little rough run through here, but certainly, like you mentioned before, if anyone thinks about it and is interested in a position,
Absolutely.
certainly let either of us know, and we'll just make sure to accommodate that the night that we have an election.
Absolutely, and for those interested in treasurer, I know that Kurt is available if you have any questions regarding the role from him, as well as Andy Sarno, who oversees business operations and works as a liaison with that position. So please feel free to reach out. And again, in the interim, reach out to board president or myself to express interest in those positions and be ready to take action at our next agenda.
Great. Any other discussion on this item? I appreciate everyone expressing interest and continuing on and serving. Makes for a good board, and thank you very much for that. Next would be reviewing the board committee and delegate assignments.
Speaking of continuing to serve, we have a couple delegate assignments that are outside of our district as well as within, so I'd like to review those. So right now we are part of the CISA 6, or Cooperative Education Service Agency. Again, Education in Wisconsin is kind of regionalized. We're in different regions. It allows you to connect and act. Right now, Chris Weigert is serving in that role as a CISA rep for the year. Is anyone interested in doing that? I know, John, you've done that in the past as well.
Yeah, I'm fine continuing on, but I'm also fine if anyone else expresses interest. It's a good way to meet other school board members at these meetings, and so if no one else expresses interest, I'm happy to continue on. I'll just say it that way.
This is more of a case of this.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Again, you can reach out in the interim. We'll formalize these at the next meeting. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards holds an annual convention in January. Prior to that, they will develop resolutions that we actually bring here for discussion by the full board to inform our delegate and an alternate on how they should represent our district in those meetings. So in this past year, June was our representative, and we had that conversation both pre and post those meetings. I don't know if anyone else is interested in continuing to serve or serving in that capacity. Certainly the just so you know, the convention is open to all board members. This is just who would serve as the delegate. You go to the delegate assembly. You would have been informed by the full board on how to represent the district, and you do some voting. June, you certainly can speak to that if I'm not capturing it, but that's the obligation, is to specifically be there for the delegate assembly.
June?
Yeah,
Are you interested?
I would be happy to represent again. I had a lot of fun at the WASB conference in January. It was a 3-day event, and I learned a ton, and I was happy to represent. But also, if anyone else is interested, there's
also an alternate spot, correct?
Just in case June gets sick, we do kind of put an alternate on deck. And again, we don't necessarily have to formalize that if leading in we needed to. We just formalize that in case something happens, that we've formalized who that alternate is, who's authorized to act on behalf of the board. And again, certainly everyone is welcome to participate in the convention. It's just the delegate in that one forum.
We may have a winner, but we'll see.
Head Start, Melanie Ergot has served as Head Start. Recall that Head Start, it's unique that we oversee the county Head Start as a school district, and it requires its own board who has clearly all sorts of fun things they want us to do with wordsmithing. But Melanie served on that, so we do look for multi-year kind of service. It's difficult to get in and get acclimated, so if you'd like to continue, Melanie.
Yes, I'm happy to continue.
Okay, anyone else want to arm wrestle Melanie for that honor?
Melanie's done a very nice job.
I know that Jamie Malsom, our director, will appreciate that continuity of that representation as well. That takes us to committees. So of course we have a policy on committees that I referenced before, but right now our board meetings, we have 2 a month, right? So if you go network with other boards, you might be like, Jen, they only have to meet once a month. Well, that's because they have a plethora of other committees that they have to sit on. It's a different committee structure. We're using 1 meeting a month as committee of the whole, so you see those items all together for discussion, background, et cetera, and then we're using that second one generally of action on those things. So that's our current structure. With that said, we have 2 committees that work tirelessly outside to kind of be first eyes in a lot of preparation. That's both the policy committee as well as the curriculum committee. So first would be general discussion on committee structures. Is there anything else that the board would like to entertain as a formal committee? And then next, looking for reps for the 2 existing committees.
As it relates to committees, I seem to remember maybe in the early year of my tenure, we had a finance committee. And I think at that time, there was so much interest in what was going on with the finance committee, rightfully so, that we said, you know what, let's just do it in a regular board meeting and essentially use the committee as the whole. I guess I would ask Superintendent Wimmer if you know, are there any committees that other districts might have or in your past practice that would perhaps benefit us because we're at a disadvantage because we don't have a certain committee?
Sure, and there might be some that exist in committees but not formalized in this structure or on camera, so there might be some safety pieces where they're digging into stuff, but generally you see facilities and finance. There may be a personnel committee. Again, it depends on the size of your district, as well as, like you said, you know, authorizing a committee to kind of really bring forward and get those actions. So then you're just hearing kind of the tip of the iceberg and expected to act. So I don't think it harms us in any way to have the structure where all the board members are thinking about and having some work. I think we attend to some of the more complex things with work sessions when we need to on pieces, but you might want to consider, I know something that Andy and I have talked about before, you know, maybe if people are interested in finances, maybe less of a monthly committee structure, but maybe a couple public things around want to learn more about finance, you know, and having some presence there. But again, you don't need to necessarily formalize that with a committee structure either.
And Chair, if there are other board member thoughts, I think the structure we have works. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if 6 months down the road we say, boy, we really should, it would really make sense to have a finance committee. It's not a speak now or forever hold your peace kind of issue, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts regarding committee structure? Otherwise, I think
So then I
likely
would
proceed.
I would look at our current committees. Policy committee is John, as well as Chris and Chad. Would anyone else like to join that team? We have made it through the entire cycle. We're more on a quarterly and as a needed basis for work around policies. We are looking to work with that team now that we're back on that cycle. We've got a student group that are going to want to engage with policy work as well. So we're excited to invite them in a little bit less formal structure to participate in some dialogue around policies. But would anyone like to join? Would the three of you like to continue?
I'm happy continuing on policy. Jen?
Thank you.
Yes. John says yes.
Thank you.
And also, you can be on more than one committee, right?
You can. There's no limit.
Let's just get that
Right. Nice.
declared right now.
Nice try.
All right.
Great. So if anyone would like to join that committee, if between now and that next meeting, you can just let us know so that we can include that. We'll formalize that and carry that forward. The next would be the curriculum committee. So currently June, Kelly, and Melanie are on that committee. Would anyone like to continue or to join that group?
Continue, continue, and continue. I see 3 continues.
Any other like to join that fun?
All right.
Perfect.
There we go.
Great. And then I know that we share upcoming events with board members, but one piece that does get formalized is the graduation ceremonies. We look for representatives. If you could just let me know, you don't have to think about it right now, but on Sunday, June 9th, we have the East High School program at 1 p.m., the West High School program at 4:30. We would want that in advance so we can have your names in the program, and that consists of you actually formally shaking hands, being on stage, and being a part of kind of handing out diplomas during that. So if you have any interested in participating in one of those ceremonies, please let me know.
And for those, I'm sure who have participated in those in the past, it is a really neat opportunity. And Superintendent Wimmer, I think normally you're looking for more than one, but probably not 7 showing up at one. But
No, we don't need that, but it's good to have at least 2 board members because it goes fast and furious when you're graduating lots and you're feeding diplomas and shaking. Your face hurts after a while from smiling so much. So I suggest you do 1. Doing 2, really, my face does hurt after a while from smiling. But yeah, just let me know. They would look for those names relatively shortly just so we can get them in programs.
great.
There you go. There you go. I'll make note of that. Let me guess, West? Yeah, you can do that. You know, and I'm sure you're anticipating your child's graduation. Many of you are, and that is a wonderful perk of being a board member is getting to be there and to hand your own child their diploma and have those photos. So we absolutely welcome that.
All right. Anything else on this item?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for going through that. Let's see, that's our last discussion item. We move now to action items, and we have some out-of-state travel items. First one for debate forensics. And last time we had heard this presentation, just asking if there were any questions regarding the proposal we heard last time for debate forensics for out-of-state travel. All right. Hearing none, I would move to approve the request for out-of-state travel for debate forensics as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. We have a motion and second to approve the request for out-of-state travel for debate and forensics as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We move then to out-of-state travel for Honors Wind Ensemble. And Superintendent Wimmer, I think this is a first, so we're going to do a combination discussion and action on this one. And I think it has to do with the timing, correct?
Correct. Just the timing of the trip and those pieces. So we're asking, Leah Duckert is here. Come on up, Leah, if you want to give a note about that, because again, we're bringing this forward for both discussion and action this evening. Leah can give us some details of that trip and answer any questions that you might have. Leah?
Thanks. I'm Leah Duckert-Kroll. I'm the Director of Bands at West Bend High School. So this is my fault entirely, which I apologize for. I didn't understand that the out-of-states needed to be approved regardless of whether it was an overnight trip or just a day trip. I've done a lot of international travel with the bands, and I knew it always had to be approved because it was overnight. So it was an oversight by me, which I apologize for. The trip is to Kenosha Bradford High School to start with, where we do an adjudicated performance with two really awesome judges. One of them is Scott Corley from UWM bands, and then the other is Dr. Eric Janners from Marquette University. So if you've been following any of the Marquette stuff and you happen to have seen their pep band, you would have also seen Eric Janners there as well. So we do an adjudicated festival at Kenosha Bradford through festivals in the parks, and then we go to Six Flags in Gurnee, which is where the out-of-state needs to happen. And then the awards ceremony is at 6:00 p.m. in the Wilderness Theater at Six Flags, which is great for the kids because they get some bonding time, which they've been asking for actually. And they get some fun time as a reward for a job very well done. And then after the awards ceremony, we pop right back to West Bend.
Very good. Board members, what questions do we have? Sounds quite straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I'd move to approve the out-of-state travel for the Honors Wind Ensemble as presented. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and second to approve the request for out-of-state travel for Honors Wind Ensemble as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries, and thank you for bringing this to us. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So next, we move to action item regarding the 2024-2025 staffing plan. Now, Mr. Hansen had presented this to our board last time. And so I believe Superintendent Wimmer, there's nothing new to present. And so
Correct.
I guess we pause to say, but Mr. Hansen is here certainly. Are there any questions with regard to the 2024-2025 staffing plan? Then hearing none, I would move to approve the 2024-2025 staffing plan as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Motion to approve the 2024-2025 staffing plan as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Now that we have approved the plan, we have another action item that Mr. Hansen will walk us through, and that is the 2024-2025 certified staff contract renewals. Good evening.
Good evening. This is the same time of year this item always comes up for approval from the board. It really follows the item that was just approved by the board related to the staffing plan. Now that the staffing plan has determined how many contracted staff members are required to deliver the program for the coming year, the next step is to offer contract renewals to the staff so we can accomplish that. Big point to emphasize here is, in spite of decline enrollment, budgetary limitations that we've discussed for several meetings now, we are able to provide a staffing plan as well as contract renewals which avoid any certified staff layoffs for the coming year. Attrition was able to be used as well as transfers to accomplish reductions in various areas. So we're happy to report there are no certified staff, which is generally teaching staff, in other words, layoffs as part of that plan. Renewals come forward this time every year because per state statute, contract renewals have to be offered to teachers by April 30th. And as this is the last meeting before April 30th, this is the time to do so.
And I'll ask it anyway, I'm sure it goes without saying, but the number of contracts and the renewals that we would be taking action on here would fit within the district's thought of a balanced budget. Is that correct?
Correct. These are all part of the staffing plan, which is part of the balanced budget that the administration will recommend to the
Great.
board.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Hansen? Otherwise, this is an item that's on the agenda for approval. So I'd move to approve the 2024-2025 certified staff contract renewals as presented. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, June. Motion and second to approve the 2024-2025 certified staff contract renewals as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move then to revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through March 31, 2024. And Mr. Andy Sarno is going to be presenting to us on this topic tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you on a monthly basis. This is brought forward for consent. However, we have the opportunity quarterly to bring just a little bit of additional data forward, where we not just look at the current year with the budget to actual and any variances that we're seeing that are out of the ordinary. We also have the ability to compare a prior year budget to actual for the same period. This is my favorite quarterly of the year because just about for the most part, the way that payroll lines up, we're 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year and just about 3/4 of the way through the school year as well. So it's a neat opportunity, even though there are some variances since teachers are paid through the end of summer and it's accrued backwards. So couple of data points that I always like to make sure, and again, this is for you guys, maybe even new board members, but as well, I'm repetitive for those that might be first-time watchers on electronically in video land. We do, when you accumulate all of the different funds, because we're a fund accounting, when we look at all of the funds tallied, we are over $100 million organization. Now, there are a couple of areas where there's some duplicated funds where we transfer a large amount into another fund. It's recognized both as a revenue and an expenditure in a couple of different areas, but even considering that, we're still a $100 million company. When I take a look at the original budget that was provided, and it's the first page that I'm on right here, it's the red cell, we do have a budgeted deficit that was purposefully planned, short of a very small chunk within our nutritional services department where we're making an investment into those meals and the program that we offer. The large majority of this is due to debt repayments. So we don't need to have any levy or any dollars for our non-referendum debt, which I'll show you in a minute, as well as we're fully levied. We have no more debt levies. And so this is representative of non-referendum as well as referendum debt is the primary purpose behind that. Another area, and I always keep it on there, is that little blue cell with the asterisks. You will see that number vary over the course of the year. Quite often, we will be in the negative. Money coming in does not always equal money going out. At this point in time, we're $1.75 million in the black. That's really important, and it is dependent on the fund, but it's important because, as I'll show, we're doing very well with our investments this year, which being able to maximize those revenues is important to be able to sustain some of the programs that we offer. As I take a look, and again, comparing this year's budget to actual to last year budget to actual, I have this categorized and it's bracketed by different by the fund. First page, general fund, revenues are outperforming compared to last year by 2%. Again, looking at cash flow and an improvement there, which is why we're just a little bit more positive than normal. And our expenses compared to last year are down by about 1.5% budgetarily. Now, those are the amended or the revised budget that would have been done last early summer, late spring. We have yet to do a revised budget. I plan to bring that forward in June. The importance behind that date is that we're still looking for a couple of data points with our health insurance, making sure that that's performing well, because that revised budget would incorporate any of our premiums, anticipated expenditures built into that. And I want to make sure that we do that accurately to end this year to then springboard into next year's finances. But we will be doing that budget amendment here over the next couple of months. I was working on it today and continue with those adjustments. Next page that we have, our Fund 21, these are kind of our special funds that we have. On the top portion here, this is all of our student revenues and expenditures. Even when we have some of these trips, they'll receive those revenues and pay for the trips out of all of these. Every school has one. Here at the district office, we even have a Fund 21 designated account. Outperforming well in the budget amendment would capture an adjustment to be fit for this. So typically speaking, they do perform well, meaning that they have a little bit of a surplus, but it's not surprising if they ever do run a deficit because there are dollars that are there when we collect money for trips or other areas and when it's paid out. So it sometimes can cross fiscal years just a little bit, but doing well this year that revenues are in the black. Fund 27, which is special education, all the services related to providing IEPs, individual education plans for our students, has to reconcile at zero. Large transfer, and this is where I referred to earlier. We make a big transfer from our general fund in that doesn't happen until July, but everything is in accordance with grant claims. Expenditures are tracking quite well. No concerns that we have within our special ed. Fund 29, which is our Head Start, we are a little bit behind. We have a $540,000 claim that's in process. It will be recorded for the next consent agenda, which I'll show at the end of next month in May. But expenditures are tracking very, very closely with our expenses from last year. Again, non-referendum debt here with our Fund 38, we made that final payment. I would like to point out in several of the different funds that are commingled, we don't show at this point in time. There will be interest income. We are earning interest income, but they're not reconciled just due to cash flow and reconciliation process that takes place prior to the auditors arriving in July and August. But interest income will be recorded at that point in time, but we made our final payment. So we're done with our non-referendum debt, completely satisfied. Our referendum debt, all of the activity has been accounted for. On the expenditure side, the two payments that we have, and again, we will show an interest revenue later this spring, early summer. Fund 41, which is our first of several facilities-related projects. This is where we have our designated annual meeting dollar amount. This year it's $1.8 million, growing by 4%. Spending fairly healthy this year. We're wrapping programs up in those projects related to what's been previously approved. Fund 46, which is the second one. So these are, they serve two different purposes from a funding mechanism. At this point in time, we have recorded a very healthy interest revenue for the year. This is recorded because it's in a designated fund. It's segregated in a different area, so we have that ability to calculate that on a monthly basis. No expenditures are anticipated at this time unless that fund above ends up fully utilizing, so being fully utilized. But I don't anticipate that at this point in time, working with Mr. Harder and his team. The last area, and this is not to be forgotten about, but the $540,000 due to the Barton sale is recorded here. There will be interest revenue. I believe that was a recommendation of this board to put that in this fund, and it will be, again, recorded as an interest revenue at fiscal year end. But no anticipated expenditures at this time, but it is allowable to spend whenever it's needed. We have our Fund 50, which is all of our meals, breakfasts, lunches for our students as well as staff. Claims are a little bit delayed at this point in time compared to last year on the revenue side, but we're seeing good participation. We're tracking that. It's increased even though as a number of meals, let alone the percentage, even though we have declining enrollment in the district. And expenditures are down slightly. A revised budget will incorporate an amendment that will capture new variances with our revenues and expenditures, but still anticipating to do go a little bit in the red, again, because of some equipment as well as some staffing, and then quality of meals, the food that we're purchasing for that, which is being received very well unilaterally across all schools. Fund 73, which is our other post-employment benefit trust. We are seeing good interest revenue that's outperforming our original budget. Our retiree contributions are doing well. They make those in a timely fashion. We don't make the transfer until fiscal year end. Statutorily, it has to happen before July 30th. And if there's a variance from that, I'll make sure that I incorporate those changes into the budget amendment as well. On the expenditure side for this, we are seeing increased in expenditures. We've begun making the TSA contributions for retirees, and then as well, these represent medical continuation employees. Actual claims for this population, which is notably higher than the past several years. So again, we're monitoring that closely, making sure that we're looking at fund balance for this fund, and that it's being funded appropriately. Last couple areas that I have, Community Services Fund, and we always talk about what's included in this, but the levy is complete for the year. The participation fees, this is students that are in middle school, as well as Silverbrook participating in some after-school activities, trending well, as well as the salaries, benefits, all the expenditures related to those services, payments to the city for our school resource officers. No concerns lie within our Community Services Fund, things outside of a typical school day. Last area, which is our cooperative sports, so it's not just the hockey that we've spoken about in the past, but it's also the lacrosse that we've added for this year where we're a fiscal agent. Spending is just a little bit slow, but the revenue side is performing well. And so I think hockey has gotten into just a little bit of a rhythm where they're efficient, and we'll make sure that we reconcile that at year end for all of those sports individually. Any surpluses we give back to the participating school districts. Anything in the red we actually invoice for and make sure that it gets reconciled to the penny. Generally speaking, though, I don't have any concerns across the board. Things are progressing well. We need a budget amendment. It's in process. And I like the timing of the June due to the earlier rationale that was shared. Be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Jenkins.
Sure. I'll kick it off here. Maybe just because I'm new, I can ask all the dumb questions right away, right? Under Fund 10, under the local revenues, what does that consist of? And then when do you recognize that other 25%?
Yep. So the local revenues consist of student fees, gate receipts, and then the large majority, as you can imagine, since it's local, are property taxes. So, and that's where I shared earlier with that little blue asterisk is money in, money out. There's statutorily times where we receive taxes, property taxes, as well as the state aid, which is the other large portion. And so the remainder of that, I know there's another chunk coming here in a couple months, and then it's not even fully satisfied until late July, early August.
So it ties with tax reconciliation later on in the summer and getting that difference, okay.
Yep.
Under Fund 27, let me get to that. You might have touched on it already, but the general fund transfer, when does that occur?
Yep, so that's a transfer from the general fund, and it's important, legally obligated to provide these services to students, but the revenues don't satisfy the expenditures. So that's a transfer from the general fund, and it happens prior to the audit. So generally, we make that transfer second, third week of July, maybe even as early as the first week of August, depending on when the auditors arrive.
So is that tied to actuals then?
That will be tied to actuals to the penny.
Gotcha.
Correct.
And then just out of curiosity, where do we invest our monies?
Yeah, so there's a few different sources. We have an agreement with our banking institution. So that's one piece. And actually, we do quite well because there's an agreement. There's a local property investment fund, local government investment fund that we utilize. The banking that we have through Bank 5-9, we get that second agreement, the LGIP, plus 15 basis points. And then the third piece is that we have an organization that's representative of municipalities, school districts, that's PMA. And we utilize those in a variety of fashions. Number one, to segregate funds. Number two, to capitalize on opportunities to maximize those interest rates. So those are the three. We don't do CDs. We can't buy stocks and bonds and things like that. We have a pretty narrow window what we have for an opportunity, but doing quite well. I think this year we're a little bit over 5% at this point in time. So those days of 0.17% interest are not happening. But, and I've shared this with this group in the past, is we need to make sure that we're not so short-sighted that as those flip down a little bit, that we're missing some other opportunities where we could invest in some longer term CDs. So at this point in time, we're still positioned quite well.
Yeah, and we've seen that on the municipal level with LGIP. I mean, we always budget more conservatively than it might end up being, and then we're happily surprised when it ticks up. So we're in a good time to be doing that.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and if at any point in time anybody would like to sit down prior to the board meeting, after the board, let me know. I'd be happy to do that. So great questions, though.
Thank you for walking us through that. Other question, John?
Yeah, I just had one, and maybe I missed something. But did you touch on the deficit we're looking at here?
The deficit for the current year?
Yeah.
Yes. So the deficit for the current year, the $5,057,000, that's short Fund 50, which is our nutrition. They're purposefully, because they have fund balance that's required to be spent for the meals and the investment into those programs. Otherwise, this is related to our debt service for both non-referendum $1 million, as well as the.
That's right.
Yeah, yep, yep. Measure twice, cut once. So.
Oh, good question. Other questions? All right, this is an action item, so I'd move to approve the revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through March 31, 2024 as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that, I'm going to,
Yep.
that was Chris this time.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. We have a motion and second to approve revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through March 31, 2024 as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you
so
for your
much.
presentation.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We move now to future agenda items. First of all, our board meeting calendar, and we have a number of meetings upcoming. All of the meetings that I'm going to discuss are scheduled to take place at the Education Service Center. We have our next board work session regarding facilities at 4:30 p.m. on April 30th, 2024. We have regular board meetings scheduled here at the ESC, all at 5:30 p.m. on May 6, May 20, and June 3. And then our curriculum committee meeting scheduled for 4:30 p.m., Education Service Center, May 21. I believe that concludes the board meeting calendar. Any questions on the calendar? And then, any items for follow-up and communication? All right, hearing none, we've reached the end of our planned agenda. There is an item that's appropriately discussed in executive session. So I'd move to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely compensation. Is there a second? Thank you, John. We have a motion and second to adjourn into executive session. Any final discussion? Hearing none. This requires a roll call vote, so I'll turn to the roll call sheet. I'll now call the roll. Mr. Jenkins? Aye. Ms. Ergot? Aye, yes. And Mr. Zweigert votes yes. Mr. Donaldson? Yes. And Dr. Temez? Yes. Ms. Lang? Yes. And Ms. Kruger? Yes. All right, that motion carries unanimously. We are now adjourned into executive session. We thank everyone for attending in person or online. Have a good evening.